Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Pause for My Tell podcast. I'm your host, Shep the Snep, Shepherd the Snow Leopard. I'm here again with 2Chaotic, the fantastic raccoon.
Hello.
And we are on episode 4 of this really good. Like, this podcast has been really good. For an intro podcast to this whole thing, like, your story has been everything I wanted. It's been a really good opportunity to get to know you.
And tragedy and
everything the viewers want. If you guys are still here and watching, and this is episode 4, I'm just going to put that out there. You should hit the like and subscribe buttons because obviously you're digging the stuff. So, you get notified when we go live. It helps us with the algorithms, and it'd just be really great. So with that,
we're going to third episode of anime. So,
yeah. Once you're done with the third episode, you are hooked. It's over. We're going to go ahead and get started with 2Chaotic story where we left off. Where did we leave off? We were just talking about found family and your experience living in Indiana. And so I guess we can kind of go from there. Like what kind of happened? What were some highlights of your time in Indiana? I kind of want to know, like, when did you meet your boyfriend? And then also your experience moving into Seattle, maybe like learning that you had autism. There's still a lot to cover. So why don't you go ahead and talk to us about
that yet. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we'll start with Indiana. Okay. So, at this point, I'd been born and raised in Indiana my whole life. So, in the time that I spent in Indianapolis, when I went up there for work, had my found family at this point, we'd started, after a few years, we'd moved into a bigger place, kind of a 2-bedroom apartment that fit us for the most part. I was still a bit of a hoarder, so I still had, a bunch of stuff, and I'd kind of downsized a little bit, but, it's still kind of cramped in our place. But my job, that was always the hard part, was the job. So, working alongside a bunch of people who are older than I am, who have much different viewpoints than I do. I'd even heard them talking about furries at one point. I'd walked in on a conversation about that. They had no idea what's a furry. I had never let on at all about that side of me. And I had kept my kind of redneck customer service face on at all times at work. Never let it slip once. And I had caught them talking about furries in a much, stereotypically bad light that a normie might have the opinion of a furry, where, they see something on TV, they see the bad side where the media is reporting on us about, well, this person's a pervert. They did stuff in fursuit in public. They didn't have pants on. They got a mersuit, all the fun stuff that you see the negative portrayals of furries on. And I would walk into conversations like this on occasion. And so I knew I could never take that mask off at work, or else problems would occur.
I think that's something that's important to address, because, like, a lot of times we end up in these kind of furry bubbles where we think, well, we're furry and it's so cool, and it really is. But we don't realize that there's a whole world outside of furry, and the general viewpoint of the furry fandom for that world is one that's, like, not very positive, honestly, for what and so how do you deal with that at, like, work, knowing that it's something that's kind of something for you, at least, that you for your decision to maintain a good environment for your career, to kind of keep that hidden? Like, how does that work for you? What does that feel like? How do you deal with that?
Living in the Midwest is very, conservative oriented. People are not open about things. And it wasn't very particularly safe to walk around as an LGBTQ person in open. There were certainly parts of Indianapolis where it was okay, but where I was, a more affluent neighborhood in Indianapolis, I didn't feel safe leaving that in the open. Not that I thought that anybody was going to, physically do something to me, but there's always that chance that some whack job with a gun is going to, take offense to you and, put you out of your misery for his own good. Not that I ever thought that was going to happen, but you always played on the safe side in Midwest, as I learned. But at work, having to keep that persona of being someone I'm not, of, trying to relate to my coworkers when the only thing that I can relate to is I'm from the Midwest. That's about it. I wasn't into sports. I wasn't into their family stuff. I wasn't into, random alcohol things. I wasn't into just all the stuff of being an older person, their medical issues. I didn't share really any common point with them. And so whenever we'd have a party or something, a company party, I'd just basically sit there on my phone trying to look interested. But at the end of the day, I was only doing that to keep my job. Like, I had to be a team player, so I had to try to act interested. But there wasn't any part of me that was interested in really any part of their lives. And especially most of them were very conservative. They were all so very happy when Trump got elected. And to the point that the day that Trump was basically declared president after the votes came in, my boss had a company meeting where the company meeting was us watching his, acceptance speech, more or less, and cheering on the fact that all the Democrats are crying and all this other stuff. And, go Trump, go this. They're going to do all this stuff. I'm sure you've all heard it by now.
How does that... It almost feels like in that kind of situation, it's more they don't care. They just want there to be a winner and a loser almost. And the fact that they are celebrating
they did.
Other people's loss, how does that make you feel? Is that really where we should be?
It was very much a case of I can't show my true selves to these people because they hate what I am. And even up to the day that I left, I never showed myself to them in any way, shape, or form. And there was one time where they got close to figuring it out. I had let it slip once, where I went to MFF the year that the chlorine attack happened at MFF, Chlorine Con. I was there. And I had told them, I'm going on a vacation. I'm going up to Chicago. I'm going to, be around this convention area. I'm going for this sci-fi convention, going to see friends, whatnot. No inkling in Furry at all. Well, then furries were on national news at this convention center in Chicago. And my coworker started to put two and two together. And I came back, and the first thing the secretary does when I walk in the door, they're like, "Hey, did you hear about that chlorine attack that happened at this convention? Weren't you up there in that area?" I'm like, "Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God."
How'd you get out of that one?
Because, on her computer screen, I seen the excerpt that they had from Fox News where they were interviewing Uncle Kage in front of the hotel with all the people in latex gear and pup hoods and everything walking by. And I'm like, "Oh, Jesus. Oh, God, how am I going to get out of this?" And so being the brainstormer that I am on the spot, I'm like, well, I was at a different convention nearby. I heard the sirens. I had no idea what was going on. Sure, I seen all those strange people walking around, but that wasn't what I was there for. And they bought that, thankfully.
Wow.
There was one Halloween where I felt particularly feisty, and I have a raccoon Kigu. I have a Kigu. I mean, it's just a generic, the anime Kigu of a raccoon. You can see at any con, they're very generic. It's not a character or anything. But I wore it to work on Halloween. Acceptable time to wear a costume. And everybody kind of liked that. They're like, "Oh, you're so cute. You're the mascot of our company." And I'm like, "Sure, let's go with that." But they didn't really have a whole lot else to say positively about it, so I never tried that again. I always joked that the last day of work I was going to go in fursuit. I always joked about that. I probably should have followed through.
Did you? Okay, so you didn't. You played it safe.
I didn't, but only because when I left my job, I was under the impression that they were going to keep me on as remote work when I moved. So that's why I didn't sever that tie. And yeah, that didn't happen. So I could have walked in on fursuit, and that would have been fun. That would have been great. That would have been great. But yeah, so after kind of the reason that I left my job was kind of when the pandemic started. I kind of got the feeling that I didn't like what I was doing anymore because they had kind of moved me from a help desk role to more of a programmer role by that point, and I really wasn't doing too well with the programming, like I've explained before with the ADHD. And even after getting medication and whatnot for it and trying different things and getting into a flow with it, I still wasn't doing very well with programming. I didn't really have proper training. There wasn't any resources at my workplace to help me with that. Nobody would send me anywhere to get training. None of the other programmers were helping me. And so I'm like, well, eventually this train's going to crash, and I don't want to be on it when it does. So I kind of started to look for other work, but there wasn't really anything in the area that I could get comparably to an income to be able to keep living where I was, because that's when rent started to spike. Like when I moved up to Indianapolis and God, I think it was like 2013 or something. Yeah, my rent in my first apartment, a one bedroom, was $500.
What?
God, I wish I could have that now.
Aha.
$500. Like even the best apartments in the areas, like even then they were like $800 at the time. But by the time that we eventually moved out in 2023, God, our rent for a 3-bedroom, granted we had moved up to a 3-bedroom by that point, but the rent for the 3-bedroom was $1,650, which was really high for the area.
Well, and what's your rent now in Seattle, where you're currently living?
And now that I've moved to Seattle, the 2-bedroom that me and my boyfriend live in is $2,250 a month.
Which really for the area is not horrible, really, but that's still high.
Which is pretty okay, I guess, for Seattle, but definitely a lot more than I'm used to. And so that's been fun. But as far as Indianapolis goes, like in the years that I spent there, I didn't really do a whole lot outside of just going to restaurants, going to see various things, various museums. I mean, there's not much to do in Indianapolis if you don't like cars or sports. So I guess there's Gen Con. I always love Gen Con, but that's just 4 days out of the year.
Yeah, I need to go to one of those. That always sounds like a lot of fun.
It is. It's very nice. I'd recommend it if you're anywhere into board games, tabletop games. Definitely go to Gen Con once. It's like going to one of the largest furry cons, but board games. And so, yeah, when the pandemic started, I knew I had to get out. I didn't want to do this anymore, but I didn't know where I could go. Nobody was really hiring at that time in Indy. I didn't have anything that I could find that I could do. But fortunately, like a year into the pandemic, my boss bumped my salary by a lot. I went from making like 55 to 75.
Oh, wow. That is a jump.
So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll stay here for now, even if I have to suppress everything about who I am. I like putting food on the table. But that's also kind of when I met my boyfriend, Ronan. And we started talking the day the lockdown started for the pandemic. Like the day before, I had sent him a message for the first time because I liked his icon on Twitter that one of my friends drew.
So you were the one that reached out to him. You saw his icon and you're like, I like that. And you just sent him a message.
I literally sent him a Twitter DM. I said, hi, I like your icon. Let's talk.
That was it? Because typically if I get messages like that, it's just like, hi, I like your icon. It's just like, okay. I don't know.
We had kind of interacted in art streams. Like he was generally a purveyor of art streams of one of our mutual friends. And so, I mean, we kind of knew of each other, but we never like talked directly. So I guess I wasn't a complete rando. I was just mostly a rando.
You knew of him. He knew of you. It wasn't like out of the box random, just in your DMs, like, or FA notes, just hi.
Yeah, I didn't know subject 1 and hi him. I just, I had a subject line at least. And so then we started talking, and I remember the first picture I sent to him. I was at Walmart trying to find toilet paper the day before lockdown started. bad time to run out of toilet paper, by the way. And I have a picture. The first picture I ever sent to him was of a Walmart, the whole aisle where toilet paper would have been, the whole aisle. There is nothing there. There's no toilet paper, but halfway down the aisle, there is a 6-pack of Corona beer, the Mexican beer Corona. And there's a dragon plush sitting on top of it. And I definitely did not put that there, did not stage this. I have this photo still. And I'm like, this accurately describes what is happening right now. I think it's funny. I'll send it to him. And that's when I discovered that I liked his sense of humor. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I like you. But I had no interest in a relationship at that point. We just started to talk. But kind of going forward a few months, he kind of joined the same spaces that I was in. We had kind of a group Discord server at that point, who didn't during the pandemic, honestly. And so we talked that way. That's how we interacted. And I kind of got to know him a bit better. Got to know his love for books, for writing, for movies, for theme parks, various things. Like, of course, he loves theme parks. I have scoliosis and can't ride roller coasters. Match made in heaven.
A perfect match.
Perfect match. And he loves scary horror things. I get jump scared by kittens in a street.
Okay,
match made
so
in heaven.
For him, that actually probably is more fun, just to be real, because he's just like, I love scary things and I'm going to scare Chaotic all the time. He's going to freak out. It'll be great.
Yeah, pretty much. And it was actually funny. At one point, kind of while we were still talking, he won a raffle on one of his favorite artists and kind of one of my favorite artists. And so we got a picture together. And we got an art piece of our 2 characters at a Japanese street festival where we're in kind of like kimonos and whatnot. And I'm kind of falling over something, and he's kind of holding me and whatnot. It's really cute and everything.
I need to try to add that in post and edit so everybody can kind of see if I'm doing this magically through the power of editing. This is the picture. It's adorable, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And I thought nothing of this at the time. I just thought it was cute. Well, all of our mutual friends were like, are you 2 dating? I'm like, no, what are you talking about? No, we're just friends. What are you talking about? And then so a few more months go by, we're still talking. He feels like just any other friend that I would have. We were pretty close. I liked him. We talked about a lot of things. And so one night, I'm like, I think it's about September at this point in 2020. The pandemic's been raging for several months now. We're all still stuck at home. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. Doing a lot of thinking about my life in this time, like probably a lot of other people. And I just kind of got to thinking, one of the reasons I had never had a relationship up to this point was because I made a vow when I was little, after seeing my mother have such problems with my father, and after seeing her relationship with my stepdad, that I told myself that I am never going to have a relationship until I am good and ready, I'm financially stable, and I can provide for someone financially, so that money is completely off the table as a problem in our relationship. And that I will have my shit together before I even attempt to have a relationship with somebody. Because if I don't have my stuff together, it's never going to work. I'm never going to be able to be there for somebody. And, made all the more complicated after I figured out that I was ace and that I didn't have attraction to people. I'm like, well, shit. Guess I'm just going to be alone forever. But then Ronan came into my life, and at this time in the pandemic was the magical time period where I was contemplating my relationship status and seeing that, I probably won't live forever, and there's a decent chance that I could die at any moment from a disease that I have no control over. And I just kept thinking, I'm like, maybe I need to change my ways. Maybe I should be more amicable to a relationship. Even if I don't find someone attractive, I can still be a companion with that person. And if I find the right person, sure. So then a couple of weeks later, me and Ronan had stayed up late on a Discord call. We were watching a film or something. I don't quite remember what we were doing, but it was 4 a.m. at this point, much later than normally I would stay up. And so he's like, I've been thinking about this for a while, but would you want to go on a date sometime? And of course, we're, on the internet. during the pandemic, can't physically go do anything together. He lives, 3 hours away. And I'm like, sure, okay, yeah, we can have a date. That's fine. Like it was nothing. And apparently this broke him because up to this point, he was like having a crisis because he thought that he was falling in love with me. He was having, talks with his therapist about it. He's like, oh my God, I think I love this person, but I can't ask them out. They're ace. They have all these friends. They have other people who crush on them, which another part of the autism story that I'll get to later. I had a lot of people over the years who apparently have had crushes on me that I had no idea had crushes on me. I'm completely oblivious. I did not pick on those social cues. I just thought they were being nice. I thought they were cool friends. Never thought they wanted to date me. Cool. So Rona had been agonizing over this for all this time because I had all these people that were chasing after me that I didn't know about. Mm-hmm. And so he finally popped the question, and he was so dumbfounded that I immediately said yes without hesitation.
Can I just say, though, from your boyfriend's perspective, like that probably took a ton of guts to do, because the person that you're attracted to has told you that they're ace, and that can be like very difficult because he's attracted to you, but to know that that person you're attracted to is ace, and you said that he was in therapy, asking these questions, like you almost feel like there's a bit of like a power dynamic where you can't go and ask them because they're ace. Like, I don't want to ruin or put any baggage on this relationship that I really enjoy and hold dear, because I don't want to make that complicated for them when I know that that's their default. And so for him to like go and do that, like that's hugely courageous and brave for him to do. And then for you just to be like, oh yeah, like it probably was the biggest weight off of his shoulders ever.
I mean, it was for him. Yeah. Like I had no idea that this kind of turmoil was going on until he told me about it. And I had never thought of it from that point of view before. Like, this was just the experience that I had. And so to suddenly have a relationship with a person who had agonized over this for months and months, to the point that like it had caused him emotional breakdowns, I couldn't relate to that. And so that was probably one of the initial hurdles in our relationship that we had to get over, was I had to learn how to see things from his point of view. And I mean, even still now, that's still hard sometimes, because with my autism, I don't pick up on social cues a lot of the time. And there's a lot of times where I just can't read his emotions, and I don't know how he feels. And so I have to continually ask him directly, hey, what's going on? How are you feeling? Are you doing okay? So that I can understand what's happening.
But I think autism or not, that's still very good practice to check in with your partner, to ask them how they're doing, how they're feeling. Because even though like a person that doesn't have autism that may be better at picking up on those social cues, you still get them wrong. And so in a way, like having that as a practice is very, very good for, I believe, for your relationship, just to check in and see where they're at. Like that's huge.
So kind of after that point, I kind of had to go aside, and we'd had, long talks about, my expectations in our relationship and his expectations in the relationship. And I made sure that we set those up front. Like there was going to be no surprise. Like, I really wanted to get in your pants or something, or, I wanted you to be, closed off from your friends, or I didn't want you to do this or that, or, I said very much up front, I'm ace. I have a lot of friends. I like to, do things with them. Not necessarily, crazy adult things. It's not like I'm out having wild parties or anything, but, sometimes at cons, we do stuff with my kinks. And I enjoy doing that with friends. Is that going to be a problem for you? And at first, that was a bit of a hurdle we had to get over. But we worked that out. We communicated. We managed the expectations with each other. And eventually nowadays, we're more of an open couple. We enjoy doing things with our friends, mutual or not. And I wanted to set up front, I'm like, I'm ace, you're gay. I don't think I'm ever going to be able to satisfy your sexual expectation in the way that you want me to. And it's going to be a forced thing on my part, and that may, come off as, ingenuous sometimes. And I need you to know that, I'm okay with learning how to, manage your needs in that area, even if that's not something that, I enjoy myself. But it's going to be something that you're going to have to teach me how to do. And I may not be comfortable with some of it. And some of it, I may never do. And you have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to manage those expectations up front. And I made sure that, he understood where I was coming from. I'm like, if I can't manage your needs and you feel like you need to go to someone else, if you need to have a wild fling or some one night stand, sure, go ahead. I'm okay with that. It's okay that, I can't be your everything. I can't fully complete you. And, we're not going to be two halves of the whole. We're, crazy puzzle pieces that we're trying to fit together. And there's going to be parts where you have to get the other piece from someone else, and that's okay. And I know that's not a standard relationship in any way, shape, or form.
But it works for you guys. And I think that's what's important, correct?
Yeah.
Like, it's maybe not what a normal person would be like, this is the ideal and you must follow the ideal. But for you, that ideal is never going to be a thing. And so for you,
that's not the ideal for me.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you've found your ideal, and that your boyfriend has found his ideal in you. But one thing I'm interested also from this aspect that you've talked about is, so you go and you try to make sure that you do what you can to help fulfill his needs. Is there anything that he does to help fulfill your needs? And I know that you're asexual, but you said, you have kinks and there's certain like actions that will kind of get you going. Is there any of that cross play? Like, does he try to do that for you as well?
I mean, he definitely tries. There's a lot of parts where I'm pretty self-sufficient on that end, and I probably always will be. But that's definitely been a hurdle in our relationship sometimes, where I'm, sometimes it's difficult to explain my kinks in a way that he can perform, or it's difficult for him to, ask me to do certain things that I'm not comfortable with. So we're still working on that. That's always a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
But we're still very upfront and communicative about it most of the time, and that's what's kept us, working. And there probably will be a point where I'm eventually comfortable with doing some of the things that, he would want me to do, or that he's comfortable with doing some of the kink stuff that I need. But it's the stuff, that I would have to teach him how to do, because it's not something that's his interest. And it's just this mutual respect of each other's boundaries, the mutual communication. It's very important. Like, there's no such thing as over communication when it comes to a relationship. I probably blather every thought that comes into my head to him. And whether that sounds weird or not, that's just what I need to do to help him to understand that's, my thought process.
Mm-hmm.
And conversely, I ask him a lot, what's going through his mind when it comes to a certain thing that he needs, or, certain his wants or whatnot. And, that's just how we work. And that's what's worked for us. And I know other people have come to me for that relationship advice after seeing our relationship. And sometimes it's not what they want to hear is, you need to be open in your relationship a bit more. But I really think that's a healthy thing. I'm not sure that the traditional monogamous relationship really is the gold standard, because being locked with someone who can't meet your every need can get, kind of isolating. And I think that's why a lot of people fail.
Or also the expectation that they have to fulfill those needs, right?
Yeah.
Without that communication there.
Like I've seen, like, especially in my family, that people expect their partner to be their everything and to meet their every need. And if they even think about getting it from somewhere else, that's going to end their relationship, as if it's tarnishing everything they've ever built. And I don't think that's a healthy way to live, because, we're all people. And while, I don't expect everyone to follow that relationship, that may not be what's right for them. It may be that two people need that monogamy and need to be each other's everything, but that's just not what worked for us.
Right. And I think that you hit the nail on the head there, where I think we just need to understand that what works for you or works for me is not always going to be the same. And that's okay. And I think, and it's important to discover what does work for you, apart from what has worked for everybody else, because it's not always going to. You talked about being weird puzzle pieces. We all are weird puzzle pieces. Like, we're not all going to fit the same, and we shouldn't be expected to fit that same mold that everybody else fits. It doesn't work. So I think what you've established with your boyfriend is incredible.
And that's just kind of what our relationship was founded on. And especially with a long distance relationship during the pandemic, I mean, the only things we could do with each other is, talk on Telegram or watch a movie over Discord or play games and stuff for the longest time until we could finally travel again. And thankfully, he only lived 3 hours away, so I could go visit him on occasion. And I would usually go stay the weekend with him at his place. And, we'd snuggle, we'd watch, scary movies. We'd go to a theme park or something. We'd go out into the city. We'd go to the little, kind of gay section of the city that he lived in that had this really cool bookstore that I missed so much. It was such a cool bookstore. But I need to explore some of the bookstores in Seattle. But and eventually it came to the point to where he moved in with me. He moved in with me and my found family, and we basically had a new member of our family. And while he was my partner by that point, we're not married yet. We're engaged. We might as well be married by this point with the way that our relationship has gone. We just haven't, officially tied the knot yet. And, but, he moved in with us, and we suddenly had a fourth member of our found family. And that was a little difficult to adjust to sometimes because my roommates didn't necessarily know him as I did. And so there were some growing pains with that.
Well, and that can be kind of, in a way, difficult because you find this family and you grow so close, and then the new person moves in, right? And that can be really difficult for anyone, really, to not just come to terms with a friend of your, a very, in this case, family, to have somebody come into that family that's taking a lot of that attention away, that's, a romantic interest rather than just a familiar interest. That can be difficult. Did that cause anything? Was that difficult to deal with, or did most of the people do pretty good, or kind of a bit of both?
It's kind of a bit of both, really. If they didn't have the same interests that our family was founded on in the first place, there wasn't the kink interest there a lot of the time. And not that we ever did anything in the house with our kinks, really, for the most part. We weren't active with each other or anything. But it's just kind of the whole growing pain of now there's a fourth person in the house. We have a 3-bedroom house. They're living with me in the master bedroom. And everybody has their own space. But it took a while for my boyfriend to find a job. So I was supporting him financially for a long time. Money always causes strain in a relationship. So we had to work around the fact that I was paying for them, and I couldn't, afford other things that I wouldn't normally do. We couldn't go out as much, couldn't eat out as much, couldn't do things as much together as a group. And I would often want to do things alone with my boyfriend because, we're in a relationship now. And that definitely caused some strain. And kind of after we moved out here to Seattle, I really wanted to be, with my boyfriend and not have to live with a bunch of people all the time, even if they were the people I'd spent the last decade of my life with. And I didn't want to, end our family. I just wanted to, live nearby. And so me and Ronan eventually moved out, and that did cause strain on the relationship, especially to the point of that. And we just kind of went our separate ways. I'm not on good terms with one of them anymore, and there's a lot of reasons for that I probably won't get into. But I'm still on good terms with one of the other ones.
And you don't have to get into it, but a person that's been an intricate part of your life, you consider them family, to be on bad terms, and you don't have to go into the hows or the whys, but I just wanted, how does that make you feel? How does that impact you as, a person that has gone through that? What were the feelings associated with that?
It's definitely sad to, be close to a person for so long, and then you grow apart, and you have to, blockades in your relationship together. And when those blockades become insurmountable, it's difficult. It's like losing, part of your family. And that person that I had been with, for so long suddenly isn't there anymore. And there was definitely like a grieving process to that, because what I had known was no longer there, and I couldn't rely on them anymore. And the memories that we'd shared, we had a lot of good memories together. We had a lot of bad memories together. And, I try to remember the good times that we had together. And it is, it's difficult, but that's just part of life. People come, people go. Even if, they're an intricate part of your life, eventually you might move apart, and that's just part of getting older, I guess, really. It's just like I grew apart from my family back home when I moved to Indianapolis. And now that we all four moved out here to Seattle. We were staying with a mutual friend who had a large house, and I was trying to find work. My boyfriend was trying to find work. And once we both found steady jobs, now we're in our own place together. And I'm still within an hour drive of my previous two roommates. And I still want to be a part of their life. But, if one of them doesn't want to be a part of the life anymore, I'm not going to try to force that. It's fine. If they want to go their own way, so be it.
It almost feels like, when a typical person gets married or leaves for a relationship with their partner, like they leave their mom and their dad, their siblings, and that also could be difficult. And it kind of feels like, you experience that same thing instead of like a typical family, but with your found family where there was that strain of departure because of, that relationship that you wanted to pursue.
Yeah, I suppose that's a good anomaly to it, yeah. But that's definitely difficult. It's definitely caused me a lot of stress, a lot of sleepless nights. But I've come to terms with it now. It's okay. We had a lot of good times. We had a lot of memories, and that I can't have that taken away from me. So
yeah,
and that's not permanent. Like we may reconcile our differences eventually and come back together as friends. Like this isn't a permanent thing. And and I certainly hope it isn't.
Especially if you leave those doors open, right? If you don't close them off, then you still have that hope that maybe someday that those doors can, be opened again, and you'll be able to have that same kind of familiarity that you had before.
Right. Yeah, all that aside, me and my boyfriend living in a 2-bedroom apartment now. We have kind of an office here. I'm very lucky to finally have my own streaming space that I can, do this with you. And my partner can have their own space kind of in the living room or wherever while I'm working in here, or when he's working in here, because his computer's in here as well. I can do something else. And we have our own separate spaces when we need them. And we still have our bed together. We have a lot of friends nearby. Seattle's a wonderful place for furries. It's definitely not Indiana. And I feel a lot better here than I ever did in Indiana.
So, like, you moved from Indiana to Seattle. What has been like the big differences? Like, why is Seattle a better place for you?
So I guess I'll start at the beginning with that one. So kind of my whole voyage to Seattle kind of began when I visited a friend out here last year. Kind of the start of January last year, I came to visit a friend that I just dragged the MFF with me the previous year. And I wanted to come out and, see Seattle, come out and hang out with them. And, kind of do travel. I love to travel. I love the process of traveling. I like going on vacation. I like going through an airport, geek on a plane. As much as people may not enjoy the process of traveling, I love traveling. It's seeing new things. It's going to see, new locales, getting to see things I wouldn't normally not see. And so I came out here to Seattle, come visit with them. And they kind of live in a really cool area, kind of near Redmond. And it's really pretty up here. It's definitely not the flat kind of terrain of Indiana where there's trees everywhere, but other than that, it's cornfields. But out here, there's the mountains. I can look out the window and there's the Cascade Mountains right there. And on
As a friend once told me, we have life here in Seattle.
okay, but so I mean, it's super pretty out here. The foliage is different, and it's this kind of thing I appreciate. I'm a huge kind of nature-ish person when it comes to enjoying nature. I mean, I like to be in nature, but I can enjoy it. And it's really pretty. The people are pretty nice around here. I mean, I've heard of the Seattle chill, but I haven't experienced it yet. And it's just a lot more open. So, like, Seattle has public transit. Indianapolis did not have public transit. They had a rudimentary bus system in Indianapolis. It really sucked. You couldn't go anywhere fast. There was no like express lanes. There was no point in ever trying to use it. You had to have a car to get anywhere. You really couldn't even bike in Indianapolis. Even like there really wasn't really many bike paths. They were really only starting to do the rail to trail program when I left, and you really had a car. You had nothing. There was nowhere to walk. Out here in Seattle, like I think I've seen a map of all the like bike trails that you could go from north of Seattle all the way. Oh shoot, my phone's ringing. What's going on? Oh, it's just my alarm to take out the trash. Okay, we're fine. We're all good here.
Oh, because ADHD, you have to remind
I've got to
yourself.
remind myself. Reminders are a big part of everything. Like there's a million trails out here, and I've seen maps that you can go from the northern parts of Seattle, from Everett, all the way down to probably Tacoma on a bike and never leave a bike trail. And you could just take that everywhere. They're beeping everywhere. I can walk anywhere around here. I mean, there's definitely places that I still can't walk and would need a car to get to, but there's also a bus system here that seems to function a lot better. And I kind of knew that this was where I needed to be when I took the bus for the first time, and I had started to kind of meet a new friend that I had found, and met up with some local friends, and we're like, hey, let's go downtown. And they're like, let's take the bus. I'm like, okay, I guess we can take the bus downtown. That's fine. I'd never really taken public transit before, other than the few times I had been on vacation to, you know, a con like in DC, or if I went to like Chicago or something, they have a train system there. I always liked the train, but get on the bus for the first time, and I look over, and 2 seats over from me, there is a person in a pup hood, in full latex gear, on the bus, in broad daylight, at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like,
welcome to Seattle.
What is going on here? And I'm like, okay, I like Seattle now. And we no more than take that bus downtown. That person gets off the bus. I look down the street, up the hills and up the avenues in downtown Seattle, and there are 2 people walking down the street in Sonic Kikus. Just broad daylight, no event going on. I'm like, I like it here. This is great.
So just briefly, real quick, as I thought about it, for people that don't know what a kigu is, because that might be something people don't know, like what is a kigu?
Okay, so a kigu is like a one-piece kind of pajama outfit, kind of, but it's generally got like a themed character on it, like, you know, like I have a raccoon kigu, or someone has a Sonic kigu, where it's like a pajama outfit that covers your whole body for the most part. Yeah. It's got sleeves, but it's got a hood. The hood is usually the character.
It's like a one-piece pajama hoodie.
Yeah, and the hood usually has the character on it. Like mine has a tail on it, and my partner has one that is his character. He's got a custom one that looks really cool. It's really comfy. It's really snuggly. It's great in the winter.
Mm-hmm. But you just see 2 random people in Sonic Kigus just walking down the road.
I'm like, okay, all right. You know, people are open here. Back in Indiana, that would probably get you investigated by the police. I don't know, man. You know, it's just it was so much more open here. And when we would go down to the Capitol Hill area of downtown Seattle, it's like the gay community is down there. Well, the gay community is really everywhere in Seattle, but it's more of a central hub there. And there's just all these cool shops. There's these cool restaurants. There's stuff to do. The train goes there. There's buses everywhere. It's just a more open place. And I can see it feels like the atmosphere of a fur con almost. where people are open in themselves and they're not hiding. And there's rainbow flags everywhere. There's rainbow flags with paw prints on them. There's furries everywhere. I can see furry stickers slapped on signs of people that I know.
It,
Like,
isn't it interesting that the place where you are the most yourself and you can take off your mask is the place where you can put on your furry mask? Like that, I love sappy irony or whatever you want to call that, but
like probably the coolest thing that I found so far in Seattle is when I first moved out here, I learned about the Slightly Furry beverage company. And I love me a cider. I can't handle alcohol to save my life. I'm the lightest weight person on the planet. A single beer will do me in. I am trash for the rest of the night. Take my keys. I can't drive. A single Budweiser will kill me. But I love me a good cider. And this Slightly Furry beverage company is a cider brewery that is owned and operated by furries. And they've just recently opened a tap room this year in Seattle. And you can go in there and people are in fursuit. People are, they got their badges on like it's a con. They're selling, furry branded cider. All the bartenders are furries. All the people that own the place are furries. All the people that run there are furries. I don't think I've seen a non-furry in there. Not that I know of.
I'm also an attendee of the Slightly Furry tap room, and just a shout out to the cool people that run that place. Slightly Furry is amazing. We're not sponsored. We could be, but they're amazing, and non-furries do frequent there all the time. I've had friends that have brought their non-furry friends. Non-furries just see the ratings and they want to come experience it. So yeah, it's this really cool place where you can totally be furry, show up in fursuit, have a drink, but also mingle with other furries and just non-furries that are cool.
Yeah.
So,
and their ciders are amazing. They're the best ciders I've ever had. Like, I don't know why their drinks are just so much better than anything else I've ever tasted. Like, even in can form, like it tastes like it's coming in right out of the tap. They're so good. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, why can I just...
They're shipping now, by the way, internet.
Oh,
they're
yeah, they are. I forgot that, yeah. So you could experience the Slightly Furry. They're great.
Totally not sponsored, but we could be. We could be.
But this is just like a shop that's open in Seattle that anyone could walk into. And I would never have anything like that in Indiana. Like, I wouldn't even fathom a furry run business in Indiana. I don't even think it would work. But out here, I can just be open in public and no one cares. And, people embrace it. And I can walk down the street and see someone in full goth gear or see someone, in just, I went to Pride for the first time here. I'd never been to Pride. I never thought about going to Pride in Indiana. And I came out here. I went to fursuit in Pride. I went to Pride in fursuit. and I probably saw 70, 80 other fursuiters there in the 2 hours that I was there. I didn't go to the main parade. I went to one of the events in Capitol Hill the day before. But even there, like, just everybody was themselves. And it was just so freeing to see this expression just open in public. And I'm like, I've come so far from where I started, from where I grew up, from the stuff I was exposed to, from my, redneck indoctrination, to be here and be what I would consider to be me, wholly, unheartedly, unmasked me. And people enjoy that. And I don't have to hide.
I'm not a psychologist by any means, but one thing that psychologists always point to as a thing that improves mental health is just the two things that you mentioned there, which is not feeling that shame, being able to be yourself, but then also having a sense of community. And psychologists are doing really good at helping people with, getting over shame and other kinds of trauma. But community is something they're still, outside of religion, is very difficult to replicate. And so has furry kind of been that for you, where, like, how has your mental health been since not only finding the fandom, but just also moving to, like, Seattle and having a greater sense of a community? And it is the community here, does that kind of give you that sense of, well, if something were to happen, I have somebody to turn to. If somebody's in need, I can go and help them. It gives me some people to associate with. Like, does that fill that need for you, I guess, since you've moved out here, or just the community in general?
So like when it comes to furry as a community, like I wouldn't consider myself to be, a very popular person. Like I'm just me. I'd have a small stream, sure. I'm not a crazy artist. I don't, make cool stuff. But even without, a huge social standing, like a great example, when I had to move out here to Seattle, I kind of needed help to do it. I had money, I had savings, but I knew that I was going to drain all of them, and to come out here without a job, not that I had not tried to find a job, I had certainly tried, but it just didn't come to fruition by the time that we had to leave, by the time our lease ran out. And I opened a Ko-Fi, and I just put it out there on my Telegram, and put it out there on my Discord. And I think within 2 weeks, I had raised enough money to come out here without having to go into debt. People had just so graciously given me, of their work just to help me move across the country without, feeling financial strain. Like they had been my safety net. And like I still could have pulled from my 401k if I absolutely had to, but that's, never a good thing to have to do in any way, shape, or form. And they allowed me to get out here without the financial strain that I would have encountered, had people, not given donations, basically, just to see me to move to Seattle. Like they weren't getting anything out of it. People gave out of the kindness of their heart. Got to think one of my friends, randomly donated $1,000 to it. And I was just flabbergasted that someone that, I talk to online, that I share a kink with, that we, tease each other every so often, would even fathom, giving me money, much less that much money, just to see me in a happier place. Like, I know that's not, I'm very lucky to have friends that would do that. And I kind of cry every time I think about it, because there's a lot of times where I don't feel like I deserve that kind of thing. But just the people that I have met over the years through furry, even just people that I've met through my kinks, through furries, people who share the same stuff as me. We go to cons, we do stuff together, we have a good time. Like I talk to them, I enjoy their company, I enjoy all of my friends. Even if I don't talk to them very much, I don't have friendship decay. That's one thing with the autism, with the ADHD. If you talk to me tomorrow and then don't talk to me for 3 years, we're going to pick up right where we left off. I'm not, we're fine. We're cool. People have lives. People forget. I forget people all the time. And just the fact that people would, help me in such a way, even if we don't interact very often, it just kind of blew me away. And like I've seen other people who are far, higher on the social chain than I ever could be, that have a problem and people drop everything to help them. And like, someone's getting, evicted from their house, through no fault of their own. And people will give, thousands of dollars just to help them, be in a better place. Or, somebody's tablet breaks and that's their main form of income. And people will come together to get them a new tablet so that they can keep working. Or somebody, hey, has a medical problem. I see that all the time because, America's great. We love insurance here. We love our insurance system. God, please help me. But like, even, like last month, I had a problem with a medical issue that's probably not safe to talk about on YouTube. But I talked about it on stream. And people, gave me money on the off chance that I had to go to the hospital to cover that expense, because that's something I didn't plan for. Since I moved to Seattle, I had to drain all of my savings to get here. And I don't have a safety net anymore. And the fact that people would help me, just like coming from the Midwest, that's not a thing that people would do. Like people, you think that your neighbors would help you in times of crisis, but unless there's a large disaster, nobody cares. And furry has been the ultimate gift that I could have ever had. Like all of my friends, my partner, my life, my social life, my entertainment, all the people I interact with, anywhere I travel. I really only travel at cons most of the time. and just to see people that I wouldn't normally ever get to see on the internet. Like, just, God, I'm crying. But
Good.
kind of
No.
fogging up my VR headset. And
The fandom is amazing, and
the fandom is amazing.
That's kind of why I wanted to start this podcast, to like highlight a lot of that, because I think there's a lot of people that they have an idea, or they see kind of things in their own life, but I think there's so much support to be had in this community that it's really valuable to talk about that and to realize like what we have is really very precious and real.
It really is. Like a week after I got out here, I think we got out here in like the week before Christmas in 2023. And a friend of mine who I really had only met once at a con, never really talked to, is like, hey, I live up here in, Seattle, come to my house for New Year's. Come to my New Year's party. And I'm like, I don't really know, like I know of you. We haven't really interacted except for once at a con, like 10 years ago. But this man invited me into his home, no questions asked. And God, I had a blast at that party. Like there were probably 20, 30 people at that party. I knew maybe 5 of them before I went, and, knew of a few other people and left, with a lot more friends. And I had a great time, and I stayed up till 6 in the morning, and I'm just like, this is home. This is what I needed. Like I needed to be around people. I needed to be in person with people, and I have that here now. And it made me, wish that I had tried a bit more back in Indianapolis to have that connection with people. Even if, I may have been rejected 1,000 times. If I find that one person, that's one person. That's someone I didn't have to interact with before. And it was the best decision I've ever made. It was super scary too. I'd never been anywhere besides Indiana my whole life. I had uprooted everything. I had drained all the money I had saved. I had, I'm moving to a place that's with a completely different climate. I'm moving to, 2,000 miles from home. If I, have a problem, my family can't be there to help me. Mom can't just drive up and, pull me out of a burning car or something. And I'm going to be alone out here. The only person I have was my found family, my partner, and the few friends that I knew around here in the area. I think since I've got here, I've probably met up with at least 30 to 40 different furries that I really didn't ever interact with before. And I've made a lot more friends out here. And for once in my life, I can truly say that I am content with what I have. It may not be, amazing. And I do miss, my found family. I miss a lot of the stuff that we did, but I have a support network now. I have people around me. I mean, even the apartment complex I live in, there are 6 furries within 5 minutes walking distance that I know, that I know of. Like there's probably more, but just within 5 minutes walking distance, I have one of the closest friends that I have is, literally 300 feet away from my house. I've got to know all their friends, and I'm meeting new people. Like one of the people who, hosts events is Slightly Furry, Phelan, he does the trivia nights there. Like I've got to meet him and his partner, and they're wonderful people. I've met people that I never thought I would meet. There are lots of people who moved here that I didn't know that lived here that I already knew. I've met up with several friends and I've reconnected with a lot of people. And it's gotten to the point where I'm like, man, I wish I would have done this 10 years ago.
Well, and also, I think what's very important is what you said, that you have that feeling of just contentment for once in your, like, now that you feel more than you have previously, that you feel content. And I think that's something that a lot of us chase. Like, we can feel good, and we can feel like things are okay, but I think just having that general sense of, hey, this is where I want to be. This is like, I'm good here. Like, I'm content. That's impressive place to be.
I mean, it's not my whole life. Like, I'm socially content. I'm happy with where I'm at there. Like, I mean, I still have, I wish I could grow my stream bigger. I wish I had a better job. There's always, things I could have that's better. But I mean, I grew up dirt poor. I know what it's like to have nothing. And I'm fine with living on a shoestring budget. I've done it before. I'll probably do it again. But socially, I'm content. I'm happy. And that's been really important to my mental health. My mood out here has been miles better than I don't think it ever could have been in Indiana. And that's just been a really important factor in my life recently. It's really helped, there's areas where I can improve, sure. But especially with my ADHD, my autism, I guess we should probably talk about that sometime. I'm not trying to be a poster child for Seattle or anything. Like, there's probably many other parts of the U.S. where you could have the same experience. But if you're the kind of person who's been, where you're at your whole life, don't be afraid to take that jump. Like, even since I've got here, I probably know 2 or 3 people now who have moved here since I got here, who has been like, why didn't I do this before? Why didn't I make this jump?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Like, Seattle's not the only place, right? Because you got California, spots in California that are very furry. Denver is very furry. Yeah. Boston is very furry. Like, there's quite a few furry hubs. So it's not just.
I think there's
Seattle, but
there's
Seattle's
Austin,
definitely
Texas. There's the Eastern Seaboard. I know Orlando has several groups there. Let's see. Of course, there's always Chicago. Denver. Of course, California, Seattle. And there's several spots in Canada. I know Vancouver is a big one. And of course, there's the EU, but that's a bit of a jump away. But
EU, this a magical land we all dream of.
Yeah. But like, if you're sitting there at home, not content with your life, don't be afraid to make a change. Because I was for so long. I was so afraid of the risk of, going somewhere and losing. And sure, there was a big chance that I could lose when I get out here. I couldn't have found I searched for a job for 5 months before I found one. I had searched for a job remotely for probably 6 months before that. And so, I mean, it took the better part of a year for me to find a job. And that was scary. Like, my savings I literally had to ask my mother for money the week that I got my job, because I had ran out of money completely without digging into my 401k the week that I got my job. Between the day that I started and I got my first paycheck, I had to ask my mom for money to get me through. That was the first time I had ever asked my mother for anything since I moved out. And I mean, thankfully she helped me. I mean, I only needed like $500 to get through until I got my first paycheck, but that was scary. And I mean, I know what it's like to have nothing, and I know what it's like to lose everything, because I have before. And I mean, we experienced a lot when I was little that put the fear of God into me to keep my finances always in the black, no matter what I do. That had to be the one constant in my life, was I had to have financial stability. And I have tailored my life around that. And I'm lucky to be where I'm at. I know that I'm extremely lucky to have a chance to be out here and to be relatively successful. I'm not, top of the crop on anything. I'm definitely not making a high wage. And we're struggling to get by a little bit. We're in a new place. I need to rebuild my savings. I need to pay off some debts. I'm still paying my student loans. I have medical debts. And that's scary that I don't have that net anymore. But I'm not worried about it like I used to be, because I know that at worst case, I can always, take my 401k, but that there's a decent chance that if I truly need it, that people would be there to help me. And that I want to be there to help them when they need it. And that's kind of one of my driving factors right now, is I want to get to a place where I can help other people, like people have helped me. Because that's the community that I'm striving for. That's why I want to be here. That's, I want to do things to help other people. I want to be able to give back what people have given to me. And that's really my driving force out here in Seattle right now, is to build that stability, to be able to give others stability. God, my VR lenses are fogging up so much I'm crying. Jesus Christ.
With that, we'll end. I guess it's a beautiful place to end. I just want to double what you just said. Like, we really are very fortunate, and some more than others. And so for those of us that can get to that point where we are more fortunate to be able to go and help other people, especially members of our community, to be there for them, I think that's really a noble goal, and that's incredible. Thank you for your story on that, Chaotic. With that, we're going to end episode 4. We're going to do one more episode, so long as Chaotic still got energy left in him, but he is too chaotic. He's energy incarnate. So the next episode, if you hang on there, we'll do one more. We'll talk about autism, because we've been alluding to that for a while, how you figured out you had it. And then let's go, if we've got extra time, we'll talk about your experience streaming, because I think that there's a lot of furries that, there's a lot of furries that enjoy watching streams, that enjoy streaming, and so like talking about some of those stories could be really fun and entertaining as well. So with that, thank you everybody for watching. If you've liked what you've seen, hit the like and subscribe button. I hit you that all the time, but hey, you've watched 4 episodes by now. Do it.
Might as well.
And with that, we will see. Yeah, with that, we'll see you for next episode. Thank you so much, and we'll see you later.
Bye-bye.